My pastor told a compelling story in his sermon on Sunday that I wanted to retell here, and I was thankfully able to Google it and find the story online. And it's all about some soldiers in the World War, I believe it was II, that had a buddy of theirs die in combat, and they wanted to give him a proper burial. So they went back behind their lines and went to the most closely located town and found a cemetery attached to a Catholic church. They went in and approached the priest and explained to him what they were trying to do, and asked if they could, with his permission, bury their friend in the church cemetery. The priest very kindly and gently asked, I'm duty bound to inquire if this man was baptized adherent to the Roman Catholic Church. And their friends could not give him the answer because they just didn't know. And so he was sad, but he basically had to refuse them this request and not permit the burial in this churchyard, because that's just the rules. Only the Roman Catholic Church and those that belonged to the church could use the cemetery. So the soldiers took their friend and sadly kind of went outside the gate. They figured the best they could do is bury him or dig a hole just outside of the fence. And it took them all night long. I mean, they were digging and digging and digging in the wee hours. They finally placed his body in, covered him up, and went off and caught a few minutes of sleep. And then as the sun fully rose and they woke up, they were still exhausted, kind of out of it, but they wanted to check and make sure that he was properly buried, that they could see where the grave site was, and before going back to the front lines, just kind of offer their last respects. But as they started looking, they could not find any trace of freshly dug soil. They were going all around the boundaries of this fence line, and they thought they knew where they had dug, but they could not find it. They're beginning to wonder if their half asleep, drowsy state was making them go nuts, and maybe they had imagined doing this. But since all of them agreed that they had spent the night digging, they knew something was weird here. And before they left, completely bewildered, the priest came up to them. And he said, "Look, my heart was very troubled by my refusal of let you bury your friend here. And so very early this morning, I got up out of my own bed, and with my own hands, I moved the fence to include the body of your friend." Now, this story on its own is compelling and an awesome example of brotherly love, but my personal reason for liking it even more so is because this illustrates perfectly what Jesus ultimately did. He came when there were just a select few people called the Israelites that were considered to be God's people. There was a white picket fence surrounding them, and they alone had the keys to the kingdom. But Christ had other plans, and he decided to take the people outside of the fence, whether it was these wicked tax collectors and prostitutes and the low lives, the dredges of society that nobody cared about or mentioned, or whether it was the rebellious heart or the Gentile. There were lots of people outside of the fence, but he, with his own hands, through his personal sacrifice, moved the fence.